I sat there like scrunched between two people and wrote out my in-home exactly how I wanted it to go. And it's funny because it's like everyone knows what to do to get six-pack abs, or everyone knows what to do like be financially to save money. Like everyone knows what to do, but until you have to do it, you don't do it. And that was the back against the wall moment where I was like, I had to make this work. Never sold 10 grand a week. I went out there 3 days, sold like 12 grand because I had to.
Welcome to True Talk. Got a special guest with me today, my man Zac Twardowski.
Dude,
how we doing, bro?
Good, man. It's been too long since we did one of these. So
It has,
for having
dude.
me.
It has. Well, I appreciate you coming down here to do this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're here for the event, but
Walking upstairs to do it.
yeah, walking upstairs. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. I want to talk about today, Zac. You've been. How old are you now?
29.
29. When did you get your insurance license?
I was 22.
22.
Yep.
And you grossed $1 million at the age of 25.
Yep.
Now, prior to this, did you ever think that you'd be a millionaire?
You know, when I was growing up, I always knew I was going to make money doing something.
Yeah.
And you know, we've talked about it before a lot, like my background. My family's doctors. My dad's a doctor, and I knew I was going to make money doing something. Like I was always driven. I always had the vision of like, I didn't want to be. I don't think it was from like a stuff standpoint, but from like an accomplishment standpoint. I never wanted to be like the bottom half. I always wanted to be one of the. Everything I did, I just always wanted to be good at it. Like I hated school, but I couldn't stand like not getting A's because I wanted to be good at everything.
Got it.
So I think I knew I was going to make a lot of money. I don't know if I knew I was going to be a millionaire, but I feel like I would make good money doing something at some point.
Yeah.
I figured it would be something through being a doctor, but I always remember, and I think back now, I always thought like, okay, I could be a doctor, open my own practice, and then I was like, man, but like, how do I open multiple practices, and then how do I like franchise? And so I always had the business mind, and I thought it was going to be something to do with medicine because that's what I grew up around, and I grew up around. You know, at dinner table, it would be my parents would be talking about, you know, medications and their patients and like.
Was your mom a doctor too?
My mom's a nurse practitioner.
Nurse practitioner.
Yeah, so
dad was a doctor.
Dad's a doctor. Yep.
Own practice.
Owned his own practice. My mom worked with him at the practice that he owned. Yeah.
Other family doctors too.
Aunts, uncles, everybody.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Like how many total doctors?
Okay, so if I count them out, and it's more now because of my extended family. But so my dad's a doctor. One of his brothers is a doctor. My mom's a nurse practitioner. One of her sisters is also a nurse. My little sister's a doctor now. She's finishing residency.
Yeah.
My wife's a doctor. My wife's twin sister's a doctor.
Damn.
And then they have an older sister who's also a doctor. And then on my dad's side, there's one other cousin. One of his nephews is a doctor.
Got it. Now,
so
as a kid,
everywhere.
You wanted to be a doctor as a kid?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Because of the pressure around you, because everyone else, or did you think like, oh, that's cool, that's what my family does?
I think it's just what I knew. You know, like, you know, you grow up in a family, like I'm sure my kids will think they need to be in insurance. And, and like I think you grow up, I have friends who grew up with military family. They'll go to the military, or like all their friends or all their family's linemen. So they become a lineman. You know, I think it's just like who you grow up around. You're like, oh, this is what I'll do. This is what everyone does in my world.
Got it. So you're like the black sheep now. Almost.
Black sheep. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Dude, now it'll be where they're all talking about stuff at Thanksgiving dinner, and I'll just be over the corner, like with all the kids playing. I'm like, I have nothing to contribute to this conversation at this point.
When did you realize that you didn't want to take that path?
You know, I think I knew like I was good at school, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
When we graduated college, Deborah, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, she got into this program called Teach for America, and it was where they put her into an underprivileged school that couldn't fill up the classroom. Okay. Because she's always been huge in service. Like she has the biggest heart in the world. She's super smart. And then so she deferred her enrollment for 2 years to school, and I did the same thing. Okay. So I was like, I'll wait 2 years. Yeah. So I gotten in, and I was like, I was going to go. I'll wait a couple years. And then I found a medical sales job, again, because I was like, I want to make money, but I know the medical world. Mm-hmm. I quit that right away. So we moved from Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado, to South Carolina. She was like, hey, I'm moving there. I don't expect you to come with me. Like, I have to do this program. You know, I don't know what we're going to do. We could do distance. We've been dating like a year. Yeah. I don't know why, but one thing I always think I've done well is trust my gut. And I was like, you know, I'll just go with you. I remember we're sitting in the library in University of Colorado. We're sitting there. She's telling me she's kind of sad because she's like, I got in here. I was hoping to get in Colorado, but they're moving to Charleston, South Carolina. And I was like, I'll go to South Carolina. Why not?
Something just told you it was.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And she's like, for real? And I'm like, yeah, why not? And I didn't even think twice. I don't know why I didn't think twice about it. I was just like, my gut's telling me yes. I love her. She's amazing. She's super smart, compassionate, probably out of my league. So I'm going to go with her. You know, why not?
I got you.
And it was funny because I knew my parents tried to talk me out of it. Mm-hmm. So like when I started doing insurance, I didn't talk to them about it because I don't want to be talked out of things. So I just don't.
So you knew they would just have
I knew they would
that
try to talk me
stance,
out of it. Same with the South Carolina thing. I never told you this story before. So my parents came to visit college one time, like one of the last weekends we were in college.
Yeah.
And I already knew I was moving. We already planned everything out. We had the movers planned, everything planned. And I went and got breakfast with my parents, and they're going to drop me back off at my house because I didn't have a car in college, so they drove me back to the house. And I go, hey, guys, and they have a 4-hour drive home. And looking back, this is terrible now that I have kids. But I go, hey, guys, I love you all. Thanks for coming. By the way, in 2 weeks, Deborah and I are moving to Charleston, South Carolina. I'm deferring not going to medical school for 2 years. I'm going to work out there for a little while, and we're just going to kind of figure it out. Love y'all. Bye. I got out of the car, closed the door, walked in my house. And
you didn't stick around for them to respond.
Nope, because I didn't want to be talked out of it, dude.
You didn't want the objection.
I did not want the objection. And so my dad texted me like an hour later. He's like, your mom just stopped crying.
Damn.
But I'm like,
how'd you feel?
I was like, bad, but I also didn't want to deal with I already made this decision. I don't want to be trying to talked out of it for an hour.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I know it's messed up, but that's just how I've always been. Like, I want to make a decision, and I don't want people to try to talk me out of it. It's not even worth it.
Right.
The decision's already been made in my head.
Absolutely. You said you had a job selling medical products?
Medical sales,
Medical sales?
Yeah.
That was before or after the move?
So I had that job lined up when I went to move there.
Okay.
And then I got there.
You never sold prior to that?
No. I bartended in college and worked in the oil fields.
Got it.
Two jobs I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did the medical sales job last?
So the first day I went in there, they were breaking down the whole compensation package, and I think my base was $50,000 a year, and they broke out if you do X, Y, and Z, you can get to 100. But I asked the guy who was my boss, this old Southern dude, and I was like, hey, what if I outperform these metrics? What's the deal? How can I make more money than this? He's like, you won't. I'm like, but what if I do?
Yeah.
I work really hard at everything I do. What if I sell more than that? And it said this many sales is this. I'm like, what if I sell? I don't remember what it was, but this many more.
Yeah.
Can I make more money? He was like, no. I'm like, that makes no sense. Why would I not just mail it in June then? And he was like, well, because then we would fire you. I'm like, oh, you don't have to. I quit. I'm not doing this.
So you never even got started?
Never got started. Nope. So then I quit that job, and I had $500 in my bank account at the time. I'm like, crap, I got to find something to do. So I started applying to everything, and then I filled out the job ad that said, looking for prior athletes or military, no cap on your commission. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm doing it.
And that was the ad for here?
For life insurance.
It said nothing about life insurance?
Nothing about life insurance.
So when people think they're this creative ad, I got to get the best ad, Zach. How do I? You really don't.
Mm-mm.
You just got it. And what's funny, dude, we used to run that ad 15 years ago.
We still run it now.
There's people out there now that responded to that ad.
On my team, that ad, Easton, Wiley both came from that team. That's $4 million a month in volume.
What made you respond to that?
The no cap on the commission and the former athlete.
And did you think it was legit?
No, but I'll figure it out.
Well, you wanted to find out.
Yeah, I'll figure out what this is. It doesn't seem legit, but I'm going to look at it
Got
anyway.
it. So you respond, you fill that out, somebody called you.
Yep.
How'd that go?
Athena called me, and she broke down the whole business for me. I asked a ton of questions. I said, sounds good. I want to meet you in person.
Yeah.
She's like, well, we usually just do it over the phone. I'm like, that's okay, but you live in Charleston, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's why I clicked on yours, because you live there. I want to meet you in person. I sat down there with her. I'm like, can you show me what the leads are? She showed it to me. I go, okay, how many can I get? As many of these as I want to? How's it work? She's like, you can get as many as you can afford. I'm like, if I can't afford a lot, but I'm working really hard, will you give me more? She's like, yeah, if you sell a bunch and I have extras, I'll give them to you.
Yeah.
And I looked at the lead. The marketing was super clear. And I'm like, I call one of these people, sell it, I make $1,000. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, when can I get started? She's like, get your license. So then I got my license and just never looked back.
Got it. And how old were you at this point?
22.
What year was this?
2017.
Okay. Trying to think of where we were. We were not this company that you see now packing out the Irving Convention Center.
I've never heard of Starbucks. There was no office.
Yeah.
No one had offices. There was one office in Atlanta.
Right.
And when I started in the business, dude, I was 4 hours away. I drove there once a week to get training.
Yeah. And we didn't have virtual setups.
No virtual
you were driving
setup,
out.
no Zoom, nothing.
So what was it like early on in the business for you? You never sold anything. You had a sales job that you never even started.
Yeah.
Right? It was just like your outside of bartending, your first real job?
First real job, yep.
Yeah. What was it like getting on the phones, meeting with people for the first time?
I remember the first appointment I had, I drove back and forth in front of the lady's house 3 times before I went in because I was scared. And I went in.
Not because you couldn't find the house.
I saw the house. I saw her sitting
in.
there looking out the door too, looking for the person supposed to be there. I drove back and forth 3-4 times. I was nervous, but I was like, what else am I gonna do? I already quit the job. I already not going to school. I got to make this work. So I'll just go in. I went in, sat with her, had no idea what I was doing. Was like, I didn't know how the products worked. Talked to her. She wanted it, and I sold her policy right there and there. It was like $150 a month.
Wow.
And I just remember just asking her questions like, hey, if you die, you want your house to be paid off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you had done training.
Yeah,
right?
I've done some training.
And you
I
just
watched
took whatever
Psychology
you
to Sale
heard.
with Sean,
Yeah.
and so there was no product training, but I'd done the psychological training, which was assume the sale, ask good questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not hard. So I asked her a couple questions, assumed it, and I was like, okay, so which one do you want to do? And she picked one, and I was so surprised she picked one. I was
Yeah.
like, that was easy. And then I started to understand it was because of the lead. She filled it
Right.
out. You know, the intent was there, but I just followed the directions of someone who had already proved it, and it worked. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, sounds good.
So I asked you earlier, right? Did you ever think you'd be a millionaire?
Yeah.
And you were like, I think I'd make money, but not at that level.
Yeah.
You made that first sale. You got going, got rolling year one. At that point, did you then see the potential of where you could get or no?
Because I started the end of 2017, and then
Yeah.
I went to our annual convention that year that was in Dallas, which is kind of full circle to where we
Yeah.
are now. But 2018, it was in Dallas, and I looked back the other day. I'll show you a picture of my phone when we get done.
That was a black and red convention, right?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, that was your first event.
My very first event, yeah. And I remember I went. Trey Honeycutt took a group of people to a dinner because I wasn't allowed to go to the top producer dinner because I hadn't sold 200 grand.
Yeah.
And I was pissed. And even though I'd only worked December, I was still pissed. I'm like, why can't I go with the other people that are actually good? I have to hang out with these guys. But I remember then seeing the Hall of Fame dinner, and I remember talking to a bunch of the top producers.
Yeah.
And all the people who were the best in the business, I had like a yellow legal pad, like a complete nerd. And you know me, I am a nerd. I'm a dork.
You are, yeah.
But I had questions for everyone written out, and I went and talked to a bunch of people, and most were nice. Some were like super arrogant, but I asked them all questions, and I was just like, I wasn't impressed by them, and I was like,
Yeah.
if these guys are making money doing this, I think I can figure out what they're doing, but I know I'll work harder.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can make money doing this because I know I'm willing to outwork these guys. And the company we had at the time, to your point, like everyone was old and white and fat.
Right.
And I was like, these guys don't have the energy. Like, I'll figure out what they know already. They've been
Yeah.
doing this for a while, but they're not going to be able to keep up with me work-wise.
Right. Now, you were part of that kind of first wave of like new blood.
The 30
almost.
appointments a week thing was
Yeah.
like, that was what John and I came up with that because everyone's running 15. I'm like, I suck. Well, you guys run 15 appointments. What do you do all week though?
Right.
He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, 15 appointments, dude. I do that in 2 days. Like, I'm dying. Like, what do you
Yeah.
guys do the rest of the week? And he was like, well, no one works that much because they don't really need to. I'm like, okay, I got to run 30 appointments. Help me figure out how to do that. Because if I run 30, then I can hit Hall of Fame because I only close 20%.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, no one runs 30 appointments. I'm like, I know no one does. I'm going to run 30 appointments
Yeah.
because I have to because I suck.
And so you're closing 20%.
20%, yeah. And then that next year, I wrote 403,000, which crazy. I was number 3 life producer in the company that year.
Ain't that some shit?
That wouldn't be top 100 this year.
No. We had a Hall of Fame dinner a few nights ago. What was there, 150
Yeah.
Hall of Fame life producers? Forget about annuity and manager, just life, it was
Yep.
over 150.
And so to your point, it's changed a lot. And I remember now thinking back to it. I'm like, it's just there was no one that was working a lot of hours
Yeah.
besides probably Sean, you, and the corporate staff. But all the producers were dinking around and running 15 appointments a week,
Yeah.
closing half. I'm like, I can't close half. So the only logical thing is to run more appointments so I can get to the 10 closes a week. But
Yeah.
I got to do 30 to close 8 or 10.
So you started doing that your first full year, but your
Yeah.
second year with us.
Yeah, like after I went to convention and I talked to everybody, I realized that everyone was writing about 10 apps a week, and a lot of them are closing half. I'm like, well, I can't close half. I can't figure it out. So
Yeah.
I have to run more appointments.
Gotcha.
And then that's all I took from that convention. And I was like, why does no one work more?
Yeah.
And John was like, they don't have to. They're good at closing. I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to work more.
Were you recruiting that year at all?
No.
No, just selling.
Just sell. My first year, I just sold basically. the
So
whole year.
403,000 sold personally.
Yep.
How much did you gross that year? Do you remember?
I grossed like it was like 325,
Yep.
315. I had good persistency. So I grossed
Okay.
like 320. And I netted like 225. I spent a lot on leads.
Yeah. How much
figuring
spent
it
on
out.
leads?
I spent like 100 grand on leads.
Yeah.
Leads and travel because I was going to Ohio every other week to run appointments in the field from
Right.
South Carolina.
Yeah. So it's like, does it cost anything? Oh, it does cost.
Oh, yeah.
You do got to spend money to make
Yeah.
money. And that's why, like, I always struggle with that. Can anybody do this? You don't have to have a certain background, a certain experience, right? You
Yeah.
had no sales background. Most sales experience you had was accepting a sales job and then turning it down.
Turning it down, yeah.
Right? You've never been trained to sell or anything.
Bartending's not sales.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But your first full year in the business, you were number 3 overall.
3 life producer, yeah.
3 life
Probably,
producer.
I think like 10 overall because the annuity guys.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
But it just goes to show you that background doesn't matter. But I will not say anybody can do this
No.
because most people would be unwilling to spend 100,000 on leads in their first full year
Yeah.
because they're focused on the wrong things. It's all perspective.
I think what I figured out was I just found people who are doing it already, like Sean and different people. And when they would give me advice, I would just try it.
Yeah.
Like someone was like, hey, we have mortgage leads open in Ohio. I lived in South Carolina and I had no money. And they're like, you want to lock them out? I'm like, how much going to cost a month? $4,000.
Yeah.
My credit limit was like $2,000 and I had like $2,000 in my bank account. But I said, yeah, I'm like, screw it. Why not? What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
And that was always my mentality. Like, what do I have to lose? I'm already broke. So who cares?
And then you went on a travel trip.
And then and what happened was I went on that travel trip and the entire plane flight there, I was like, I am pretty broke. Like if this doesn't work, I'm probably going out of business.
Yeah.
So the entire time I remember the whole flight, I sat there like squunched between two people and wrote out my in-home exactly how I wanted it to go. I'm like, okay, like I'm going to do exactly this when I get in there. And it's funny because it's like everyone knows what to do to get six-pack abs, or everyone knows what to do like be financially to save money. Like everyone knows what to do, but until you have to do it, you don't do it. And that was the back against the wall moment where I was like, I had to make this work. I never sold 10 grand a week. I went out there 3 days, sold like 12 grand. Yeah. Because I had to. Because if I didn't, I was gonna have no money left to be out. I wasn't gonna be able to pay rent. We were screwed.
Absolutely.
But my back was against the wall. I was flying to a different location. I remember on Allegiant Airlines flying to Cincinnati, Ohio. Never been to Ohio in my life. I had a bunch of appointments set, and I'm like, these leads are $50 a lead, and they're coming out every week no matter what. I'm not gonna roll up leads. Like this has got to work.
So you had this area locked out.
Yeah.
So like for those of you who knew, you're doing different type of leads. Locked out means you are agreeing to take any lead that comes in.
Yep.
And you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
So if 100 leads come in, you're on the hook.
Right.
Right. So how often were you going out to Ohio?
I was going out there every other week, and then I kept adding areas. So at one point when I had Ohio, Dayton, Indianapolis, and Columbus, and I'd go out there and I'd run for like a week, and I'd go bounce between all those places and come back home and go back the next week. Yeah. So I was gone. It was East and I were looking at this the other year. Before we figured out how to do virtual sales, there was one point where him and I each took close to 100 flights in a year.
I bet.
Because we were flying all over the place, building all over the place, had leads everywhere, going all over the country, and it wasn't because we wanted to do it, it's because we had to do at the time to make it work. Yeah. You know.
At what point did you tell your mom and dad you were doing this?
Probably about 6 months in.
Yeah. So you're already making some money.
I was making good money at it. I was probably netting 15 grand a month.
Okay.
You know,
What'd they say?
I was like, look, I'm doing this insurance thing. They're like, are you going to go back to school? I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I like it. I feel good about what I'm doing. And, yeah, I think I'm going to do this and give this a real shot. Yeah. And I remember I told my dad, I'm like, I like it because it's like what you always taught me with, I feel really good because I'm helping people. Yeah. With something they need. It's just a different way than you do it.
Right.
I was like, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So at age of 25, grossed $1 million.
Yeah.
This may be a loaded question, but how'd you do it?
So I think I kept the same exact schedule when I was first year, second year, third year, where I was running 30, 35 appointments a week. Yeah. I think what a lot of people do is as they get better, they start working less. Yes. What I did was like I just kept this, and I'm just a big like disciplined schedule person. I do the same thing every day. Like people are like, you work out every day. I'm like, I wake up at the same time every day. I work out every single day. I go to my office every single day. Like I just do this. I just am a creature of habit. Yeah. And so I had the same schedule, you know, and I just kept running 30 appointments. But instead of me closing 8 of them, I started closing 15 of them a week, you know, or 20 of them a week. And I got pretty good just by doing it for so long. Yeah. Not because I got good, but I knew who to push. I knew who not to push. I got better people showing up to the appointments.
Well, it's a good point, though, because everyone thinks that, you know, they're missing some piece. I need to get, you know, his sales trick. It's just, it comes with reps, dude.
Most of it was confidence.
That's it.
I'd sit down with you, go, Mike, I know you filled this out because you need it. Right. You know, I'm not here to waste your time, BS you. Like, let's get this taken care of. Yeah. You know, and like and I'm not the young salesperson stumbling around like, oh, like, hey, let me explain mortgage protection. You're like, okay, that dude's trying to help me.
But the only way to get from that young salesperson to the guy going, hey, man, I know you need this, is repetition.
30 appointments a week for 3 years, then you get good. Yep. You can't skip that. Right. You know, you can't skip that. Everyone wants to skip that part. It's like you can't. You got to go through that pain of sucking and putting your back against the wall where you have to make it work, and then you get better. Right. So so that part I sold my last year in the field. So that was my second last year in the field. Okay. That year I sold, I think, 650. And then I started recruiting that year too.
So you probably made half of your $1 million off your own sales. Yep. So about $500K, right? Yep. And then the rest was overrides. It
was overrides.
How big was your team?
By the end of that year, we were doing about 150 grand a month. But I was making good overrides because everyone was direct to me. I didn't have any managers. Yep. I had a little bit of spread because I had good comp from selling a lot. So You know, and people always are like, man, you have to build a team doing $1 million a month to make some money. I'm like, I was doing 150 grand a month.
Yeah.
I probably had 20% spread on my whole team, you know, so I was making a good 20 to 30 grand a month net from my overrides at 200 grand as a team.
But you had guys selling though.
Because I guys selling a lot. It was like 10 of us and everyone was selling 30, 40 grand a month.
Right.
You know, and it was profitable. I didn't lose any people. No one turned over because everyone was selling.
Yeah. Did it shock you at the end of the year to see like where you went, where you were the year before, where you grew to? 25 years old, grossed $1 million. Was any of that shocking?
So I didn't even realize I grossed $1 million until it went through April of that year. My accountant texted me. He's like, "Hey, we need to get together, do a meeting."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Dude, I'm so busy. Let's do it in October. We'll file in October." And then so October that year comes around. He's like, "Hey, we have to do this." And like I'll push it till October, but I always pay my taxes every year. I've never missed. I've never filed late, but I've always pushed it till the extended time.
Yeah.
So in October of that next year, we looked at it, and he goes, "You grossed $1 million." I was like, "Oh, for real?" So I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because I was so locked in and focused on just building the business, working, selling. I was working 80 hours a week. I had no idea what I was making.
Yeah.
You know, I knew there was some money in the bank, but I was like, whatever, we'll just keep putting it back in and figuring it out.
It goes back to, I mean, a lot of people have said this over the weekend, but focus on the result, fall in love with the result, or the process, and the results will come, right? Like fall in love with helping people.
Yeah.
And not worried about how much is my commission, and you know, if I sell it just keep doing it, keep helping.
One thing my dad told me from a young age, and we didn't talk about much, but this is one thing I do remember him telling me is he's like, money will never make you happy.
Right.
Like doing things that fulfill you will make you happy. Working will make you happy. Being a productive member of society will make you happy.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest lesson I've learned from this whole thing is like no amount of money has made me happy, but when I've been the happiest is when I've been working the most, and not working like the most hours, but I've been the most productive working, doing things, feeling innovative, you know, helping other people. Like all that stuff is much more fulfilling than the money. Yeah. I'm not giving the money back because I like it. It's like, it's like the scoreboard.
Absolutely.
But doing the work is more fulfilling than the money is.
And to do the work, you have to spend money too. Yeah. So like, notice we said grossed $1 million.
Yeah.
What were your expenses that year?
I know that year I netted like $300,000. So not that much more than my first year in the business. Because I put $700,000 back in between travel, leads. I was buying leads for people. We had a couple offices going. I had some roll-up debt that year. I think I paid $150,000 in roll-up debt that year from one person who committed a bunch of fraud.
Wow.
So I grossed $1 million that year, just over. Like I think it was $1,050,000, like $1,050,000, and then I netted $300,000 from that. And I had 3 staff at that point already. So I was very aggressive with staff, and I was very aggressive with spending money on advertising. Because I knew my goal was always, and Sean taught me this, like my goal was to grow the gross number, to just get the gross number as fat as you can get the gross number, and then figure out the net later. But like you want to, like it's a lot of people do it backwards. They try to have such a good like ROI, like EBITDA margin, all this crap early.
Right.
So none of that stuff matters. No. Like it's a lot easier to get your gross number big and then refine your processes and then have the net look really good.
100%.
And I was understood. So that was in that phase. I was like, I'm just trying to get as fat as possible, like put everything back in, you know, pay all my bills, of course, keep a little money, but like how big can we get the money coming in, and then we'll trim up the expenses later.
Right. I think a lot of people, they think too short term. Right? Like how much can I make this year? Yeah. But what you did that year you grossed $1 million, it wasn't about what you were going to net that year. It was about the next year, that you were building a foundation for what's to come versus how much can I keep day one. Yeah. You know, it's like I'd rather have, you know, a 3% margin on $10 million than a 40% margin on $100,000. Right. I kept more. No, do you? It's $40,000. Right. It's nothing.
And my thinking was I can always turn the expenses off.
Yeah.
Like if tomorrow I want to turn the expenses off, I net $80,000 a month.
There you go.
If I turn every expense, and I won't last forever, but I'll net $80,000 a month.
Right.
If I fire all my staff, spend no more on leads, I'll make $80,000 a month for a while.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, and then the couple years after that is when I started being a little bit more strategic with, you know, where we're spending money. But at that point this is a testing phase, right? And I remember people like Sean or Andrew, other people in the business would call and they go, I found this lead vendor. You want to try this? I found this recruit. And I always wanted to be the person people went to no matter what, because I was always down for everything. Yeah. I think you worked with me long enough. Like anything you guys want to try, you're like, you want to do it? I'm like, yes.
But I always talk about you on this podcast. I remember it was maybe a couple years back when the IUL started, probably about a year ago. You got back in the field. Yeah. And you started selling IULs virtually on the social media leads. Yeah. You didn't need the money, obviously. Integrity partner, the whole deal. Like you're good from that standpoint. Yeah. Why did you get back in the field and try a brand new lead that you've never done before? And you came from the world. I mean, we're talking about travel trips, face to face, right?
Never sold virtually.
Never sold virtually.
Yeah.
So you were out of the field for how long at the time?
Probably 2 years.
So 2 years out of the field. You're like Tom Brady. You came back.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did you do that?
I think two things. Like one, I was getting frustrated because people were telling me the leads weren't working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, they seem like they can't. Like I saw the advertising, I saw what they were filling out, and I knew the product.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, the product's good, the advertising's solid, and like they're working numbers. Like you're getting a hold of people. Like, what are you guys doing wrong?
Right.
And I tried to work through with people a few times, and I'm like, you know what, F it, dude. Give me the leads. I want to go see how it works, and then I want to be able to validate it, make sure all the systems work properly.
Yep.
Make sure I understand what needs tweaked, and then I can, if I'm doing it, I can ask other people to do it, and I'm never gonna ask them to do anything I won't do myself.
Yeah.
And then once I went and validated, dude, then everyone was like, man, these leads are great. But I think it's healthy sometimes. And one thing I've always learned when you're in the insurance business, if you're frustrated as a manager, like if you feel any friction, there's two things you should do. Is one, go sell a bunch of insurance, and two, recruit some people that you do not know already. Right. And stop talking to everyone you're talking to right now. Because you'll do more harm than good by beating up the people you have. You'll keep beating your head against the wall. You'll piss them off. You'll be annoyed. So I was like, screw it, dude. I'm going to sell some insurance myself. And then I'm going to go recruit new people that want to sell IULs. And I only had time to really sell 1 day a week, but I sold 50 grand back-to-back months, selling 1 day a week. I would just load up my schedule that one day, sell, and then we started recruiting a bunch of people that wanted to sell IULs. And that's, I think our group, we did $8 million last month. I think 3.5 of that now is IUL business.
Nice.
And so most of our growth the last couple of years has come from that transition.
A lot less chargebacks.
A lot less chargebacks. Very profitable.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about how much debt did you say you paid that year?
It was from one person. It was 150 grand.
150 grand from one person. Yeah. And probably some other stuff here and there.
Yeah. That was just the one that stood out. That was just the one guy with one carrier. Yeah. So there was other debt for sure, but nothing crazy.
Well, that's, one of the things I respect a lot about you, Andrew, as well. We were talking about this on his True Talk recently. He did the same thing with the internet final expense leads. Yeah. Everybody's bitching about it. They suck. He's like, instead of arguing, instead of me trying to convince you they're good, he just goes, here, watch this. Yeah. Do they still suck? Yeah. Maybe you suck. Yeah. And that's actually better because we can't change the lead. Yeah. But if you suck, Zach, we can get you better.
Yeah, we can fix you. We can fix your phone script. We can fix your attitude. And it's all attitude.
Absolutely.
All the guys that said the leads sucked, I started selling them. They were like, man, these are the best leads ever. You know? But I think that's the job as a leader too, is to differentiate when you can lead by telling someone and leading by example, and get in the trenches with your guys and show them you're willing to do it. You're not above it.
Absolutely.
It garners a lot of respect from your team.
A lot of what you have to do too is you being the leader, you're the one that has to convince the person who thinks they can't do something that they can. Yeah. You got to see it in them before they do.
I remember one of the times I was most frustrated in my business was I had a lot of my guys who were very good at recruiting that were not recruiting new legs. They were just working with the groups that they already had. Yep. And I was like, why can't I get these guys to do it? And then I was thinking, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm doing that. Like, I'm just talking to them all day long, and I'm trying to get them to recruit new people. But they're like, dude, you're just talking to me. So then I started not talking to them as much, and then I had like 3 or 4 new groups come on, like Jake Wamba, some of these guys who went from 5 to – they were people I'd never talked to. I made a conscious effort to start recruiting again, and I validated it, and then they started doing it too, because – sometimes when you say stuff, they kind of are in, but then they watch you do it, and they're like, oh,
it's like kids.
I'm going to do that.
You have kids?
Yes.
How old are they now?
2 and 4 months.
2 and 4 months. So they're young.
She copies everything already.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not going to stop. And it's going to get to the point where you're going to be telling her one thing, but you're doing the opposite. Yeah. Like, we're human beings. And she's not going to care about what you're telling her. She's going to watch what you do.
I've noticed that, like, when I'm on my phone around her.
Yeah.
I'll be like, no, you can't. We won't let her do screen time. Right. Oh, you can't play with my phone, but I'm on it. So she's like,
yeah, like, what the hell?
And that's been good for me, because I've gotten better at having, not like work-life balance, like work-life harmony.
Yes.
Jeff Bezos says that. Like, I don't have work-life balance. I have work-life harmony. They work together.
Right.
But I've gotten good at, like, putting my phone away for a minute for like 2 hours, spending time with the kids, getting back to work when I'm done doing that.
Yeah.
That part's been huge for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Looking back on the journey, obviously it was the right decision. You trust your gut. If you were to stay in the medical field, right, what would you have to do to get anywhere close to the level you're at now?
So I've met a few people that have done really well there, and it's a good parallel for me, and it keeps me really hungry, because my wife did go that route.
Yeah.
So now
she's going to school and stuff now, right?
Yeah. What time is it right now? It's 11:38 a.m. She's asleep right now, because last night she worked from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
She's in her last year of residency, making $60 grand a year to work 60 to 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know, we got 2 kids, and she's stressed out of her mind, and it's really tough.
Yeah.
Makes $60,000 a year. She makes, if you broke it down per hour, they make like $12 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, when they're
Absolutely.
in residency, it's crazy. So I get to see that, which is nice because it keeps me very grateful for where I'm at. Because it's easy when you start making money to kind of be like, oh, I wish I could do more. Or
Yeah.
I should be further ahead. But it gives me good perspective where I'd be if I went that route. To make this type of money doing that, I think you'd have to be someone that, you know, contracted out a bunch of doctors, open a couple offices.
Right.
But you'd have to do something to be very capital intensive.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a way to do it from the ground up like you can in insurance, because insurance you can fund your own business by selling.
Correct.
And you can make a couple $100,000 by selling, and you can make, that year I made $700,000. To your point, probably 500 of that was from me, or 700,000 that I put back in the business. Probably 500 of that was from my personal production.
Right.
It's like, I wouldn't know where to, when I was 25 years old, I wouldn't know who to give me. I couldn't find someone to give me 500,000 to fund my business.
Right.
But because our business is so awesome, I can be my own bank. I can fund my own business with my production.
Yeah.
And use that money to build the business.
Yep. It's not a knock on any. I mean, if you're doing that, you're in that business and that profession. You're doing it for the love of what you do.
You're not doing it for the money anymore.
Absolutely
that
not.
that time is long gone for doctors. We did it for the money.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the same goes with people here that are successful at your level. Andrew, it's past the money.
Yeah.
So what drives you to this day? Because from a money standpoint, you were good years ago.
Yeah.
Why do you still work at the level that you do?
You know, when we first did our deal with Integrity, right when the money hit, the week after that, I was not happy. Like,
why?
I thought I was gonna be super happy and relieved, and I was not. I felt uneasy. I was like, was this the right thing to do? I just got paid a lot of money, but I didn't feel good about it.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Sean. He was like, dude, you still run your business the same way you did before. Everything's the same. You're still in charge of your business. You still have the same freedom. Like, you have some money, and I realized the money didn't make me happy at all.
Yeah.
And when I got back to work and got back to the same thing I talked to you about before, like innovating, being creative, working with people, you know, serving people, helping other people make a lot of money, it became fulfilling for me. And I realized, like, I love the game of insurance and the game of business a lot more than I like making money.
Yeah.
And I enjoy, like, some of the stuff we got to do together, working on the IUL side of the business, like some of this stuff that, like, no one had really decided to do, that I was just like, hey, let me try it. Right. I enjoy doing stuff like that a lot. It's very fulfilling, and I know it helps and serves a lot of other people. So I think, and like I said, my dad said, like, money won't make you happy, but doing things and helping people and serving people and being productive makes you happy. And I know for me, like, I'm someone who always has to be doing something.
Yeah.
I would not be happy golfing 5 days a week and, you know, sipping Mai Tais. And right. I get a lot of, my business is my hobby.
Yeah.
You know, and I do a couple other business things, but business is my hobby. And I realized that about myself, that I'm a lot happier when I'm helping other people than when I'm just, you know, kind of off by myself.
Yeah.
I'd be very self-destructive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're impacting a lot of people, dude. Like, we appreciate everything you do from IUL side. You've helped out immensely there. And it's like, full transparency, you don't get anything extra for that.
No.
You just get Sean calling, hey, Zach, I need this. And be careful what you're good at around Sean. Yeah. Because you're going to be doing a hell of a lot more of it. Yeah. And you have been.
Yeah.
But you've embraced it. You've been great. How awesome is it? You mentioned some of these, Easton, Jake. How awesome is it to see their success? Like, Easton said this on stage last night about the awards. He's like, from a motivation standpoint, last year I was like a 2. Yeah. He went through some stuff. And he's like, this year I'm at like a 10. I bet that felt good to just hear. Yeah. And seeing Jake Wamba, who's just, just killing it this year. Yeah. How good does that feel?
People like Easton that have been there for a long time with me, like it's hard in business sometimes because you try to compartmentalize things and keep them business and friendship. Yep. Like, he's become a very good friend, and I know his wife very well. Like, we're friends with their kid. Like, we go on vacations together. Like, we're very close. So seeing him like unhappy in the business is really hard to keep the business and personal separate. Right. And like at some point you have to let people fail, which is hard for me because I don't want my friends to fail. Mm-hmm. And he's become a very good friend. But I would also be doing him a disservice by not letting him go through it. Yeah. And that was what Sean told me. He was like, you have to let people like go through and make their own mistakes sometimes. And go through and they're not going to listen to you, and it's going to affect your friendship and relationship for a while, but you have to let people go through stuff. Yeah. And then what happened though was he kind of went through it, he kind of bottomed out, and then he figured it out because he's super smart, super intelligent. Yep. And he's one of the most giving, caring people you'll ever meet. So seeing him come through and become I texted him last night. He said, I mean, nice text. I'm like, you're literally the hardest worker I've known in the last 6 years. Yeah. Like we would never have gotten our business off the ground without you. And that is a fact.
Right.
Because when you're building a business, you have to have someone else to validate the model. And he was the person that validated my crazy idea of let's outwork everyone.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, seeing him turn that around and then have their business exploding the way it is now, that feels way better than when I got paid a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot better of a feeling to see his wife like in tears with their kid there cheering him on. Like that's a lot more important to me than any amount of money we'll ever make.
Yeah.
And then having people like, like Calvin, who I grew up with, I went to high school with, and he got out of the military and then was working a factory job overnight, like managing a factory, and hated it and was depressed and like living in Minnesota that he hated. And I remember he just called me one day. He's like, I know I talked about the insurance thing with you. I'm not good at sales. I'm not very smart. I'm like, what are you talking about? You are smart. You just suck at taking tests.
Yeah.
Because you have ADD like a mother.
Right.
Like you're very smart. And he was like, well, what should I do? I'm like, dude, quit your job, we'll buy your leads. You'll move out of Minnesota. That place sucks. Like, sorry, anyone watching from Minnesota, but it does suck.
Right.
Where he lived anyway.
Right.
He lived
you guys
in the
have
middle,
the Vikings.
He lived in the middle of nowhere. On. Yeah, you're a Packers fan. So you agree.
Minnesota,
Mike is in on
absolutely
Minnesota. Yeah. But like seeing him do that and then like start selling, move back to Texas where he wanted to be. Yeah. Like he just bought a $1.6 million house.
That's awesome.
He's out of his mind excited.
Yeah.
And like he's like, oh, I couldn't do it without you. I'm like, I just pointed you right the direction.
Right.
You did all the work.
Yep.
But it feels good to be able to guide people like that and change their life. And now he's like, man, like Kylie and I were talking years ago about like how we didn't want to bring kids in the world. Like we're so stressed. Like now we're getting ready to have kids.
Yeah.
Like it becomes a lot more impactful than just, making money. And that's what feels better than anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude.
And dude, you know how I would do anything for my team. Like they'll be, even if they're wrong and I know they're wrong, like I'll still have their back anyway.
Right.
And I think that's how it's supposed to be, building it and letting people know, like, no matter how bad you screw it up, I'm going to have your back anyway.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, I'm going to have your back. I'm going to let you make mistakes. You might screw some stuff up. Sean might yell at us. All good. I have your back anyway.
Right.
And I think that's what's been the coolest journey for me over the last 5 to 7 years. Because I was never someone who saw myself as a leader.
Yeah.
I never saw myself as someone who could manage a team. And these guys helped me develop into a better man than I thought I was going to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude, you've grown into one for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I tell everyone about you, you are one of the easiest people to work with. Like that sounds like a simple compliment, but it's a massive compliment because most people are difficult to work with. And it's not and I don't mean that you're a yes man, I'll just do everything you say. But you don't bitch, moan, and complain. Yeah. You always have the positive outlook on everything. If there's a problem, you have no problem discussing it, bringing it up.
Yeah.
But you don't live in that, you don't live in that negative headspace.
Yeah.
You address it, move on.
Like, is this the right play? You guys think so? I disagree. Okay, but we've come to the conclusion it's the right play. Okay, I'll run it.
Right.
Sounds good.
You're not married to the idea, even if it's your idea. Hey, Sean, I think we should. No, it's not. Okay.
Sounds good.
Got it. But and you have no problem voicing your opinion.
Yeah.
But you're easy to work with. You work your ass off. Yeah. And you've been a great leader to your team, so it's been fun to watch, dude.
Well, hey, man, we couldn't do anything we do without the corporate staff, without you guys. We appreciate everything y'all do, and I know a lot of it goes unnoticed, and you mostly only hear from people when stuff's going wrong.
Absolutely.
So I just want to tell you how much we appreciate everything you guys do for us to support the company, and hopefully this is one time where you get some appreciation instead of negative reviews. But we do appreciate everything y'all do on the back end.
Thanks, man. Absolutely. Same. Well, dude, appreciate you coming and doing this. Last thing, the event, how awesome was it? It
was an amazing event. I think sometimes when you start to grow a lot as a company, you have to make sure that you stay true to like the initial core principles. And Sean's core principles were always like work really hard, rising tide raises all ships, and you stay humble.
Yes.
And I think there's been years where we've got away from that, and there's been a lot of people who didn't fit our mold. Yeah. And this feels very much like we're back to the company we were. I told someone, and you can cut this part out if you need to, but I told someone like some of the past years I felt like a douchebag fashion show.
Yeah.
And this year felt like
we're not cutting that out.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, it did. It felt like a douchebag fashion show. This year felt like an event where people are here to make money, serve their families. There's kids on stage. Like this is what the company that I fell in love with is. The kids on stage, everyone cheering each other on, everyone being at the awards ceremony, everyone videoing their guys, not videoing themselves. Like that's FFL, not the crap we had before.
Yep, dude, it was the most packed award show we've ever had, ever.
And everyone was cheering, everyone was standing, everyone was rooting for everyone on their team or another team. And that's what Sean's the rising tide raises all ships. Not me. It's about the new person, and I think we got back to that.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, you nailed it, dude. You played a big role helping out in this event. We appreciate you for that. So we will most likely be back here next year.
Sweet.
So I don't have a registration link yet, but I mean, if for some reason you miss out on this event, you got to be at the next one.
Yeah.
One thing that you hear with all of the top guys is they go to these events every single year.
Yep.
You know, I think Harold Durana, one of our MVPs, said this last night, and we'll end on this. He asked him basically, how do you keep doing this? How do you keep selling $1 million a year? And he said, I'm a student.
Yeah.
Remain a student to the game, regardless of how big you get, you know, which you've always done. So appreciate you. Guys, thanks for checking in. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with your agents, and hopefully we'll see you here next year. You'll find us here every week on True Talk. We'll see you next week.